that we make in our lives is because we want to experience certain emotions. And I think most of us get caught up in all of the emotional stuff. And in a way, they're enjoying it. Otherwise, they wouldn't create it, you know. And just with meditation, you're able to dissect the whole process and look at it almost as something outside of yourself and understanding where it comes from. The mind is what creates all this emotion. And when you can live and feel what is above that mind, the ego and then the self, you can then control it from that perspective, rather than the mind controlling you, which I think most people live from the level of the body-mind system, not even understanding there's another part of yourself, which is the true self, that is observing this whole play that we get ourselves into. You're talking about these people that are so emotional and bipolar and enjoy the whole drama, are people that just live from the body-mind system. And with meditation, you experience a different part of yourself. A self that, like I said, is all-knowing, a self that is the center of this whole creation. And when you live from that place, you are then not disturbed so much by people offending you, because what are they offending? They're offending an ego that you've built around yourself. It's not really who you truly are. And that's when you start understanding that and seeing it as separate from what is actually going on around you. You can step out of it for a moment and say, I don't want to, you know, be a part of this, and live from that way. Meditation really is one of the last steps on our path to enlightenment. Before that, we do yoga, we do other branches of yoga, which prepares for the level of meditation. So a lot of us need to start with yoga, so our bodies are not a problem when we're sitting for meditation. We need to eat right, so our mind is more centered, because the food also affects our mind and affects our bodies. So there's a lot of preparation that has to go into ourselves before we can actually sit to meditate. You know, and that's why with kids, with children just coming into the world, these souls that are taking on body and coming into the world, the reason I teach them guided meditation and not the true meditation, which is for enlightenment, for the last stage of our, you know, our being here. I teach them the guided version because I want them to experience the self so that they can become conscious creators of whatever they want to manifest in the world, because a lot of them are wanting to succeed in life before they get to that stage of giving it all up, renouncing it all, and then becoming these spiritual beings that want to now ascend. And that's why we do the guided meditation. It's not the true meditation, and I think a lot of people will say that, and they're correct in that sense. The underlying principle of meditation is, as you think, so you become. When you think only of the self, of the true being, of the Atman, we eventually will merge into that, and the ego is dropped, and we become enlightened beings. And that is true meditation. We enter a state of samadhi. But like I said, with children, just coming in and wanting to become part of the world, you can see just from watching a child, everything is outward. It's not, it's touching things, it's putting things in their mouth. They want to explore the world and see what the world is about. So with these guided meditations, they're hopefully able to anchor themselves with the self and understand how to go back and forth in the self and the ego, and have a healthy ego, just create this healthy ego to be able to succeed in life and create their world consciously.
That's awesome.
People always feel they have to be doing something. So if you tell someone to just sit down and quiet the mind, and they think that they're wasting their time. They don't feel that they're achieving anything in the world. And they're, in the sense of outward achievement, yes, at that moment they're not. People don't realize is if they sit even for 10, 15 minutes in the beginning of their day, they're so much more focused and centered that they are able to achieve more. After a certain amount of practice and repetition, they'll realize that. But I think that is why it's so hard for people to sit down and do, because, and also because in the beginning, it is very hard to achieve a state of complete peace and calm and silence within. I mean, it takes some people many, many years. That's why I say they should start with something like yoga, where it is an active movement of the body. And at the same time, the mind is learning how to calm down and center itself. And then from there, move on to the other practices. But I wouldn't recommend going right into meditation at that time. But guided meditation can work in that place because it gives the mind something to do. And it's almost like holding its hand and guiding it within. It's taking it there rather than letting it go by itself. So it does engage the mind in a way that allows it to be more focused. I think most people meditate. They might not call it meditation. It's even if they're reflecting, they're contemplating the self. Walking in nature is a form of meditation. Anything that just brings you into the present moment can be considered meditation. There are many paths to the same truth, and meditation doesn't mean you have to focus on a particular God. It's mostly focusing on the inner self. That is the God. That is where God resides. And whatever name you'd like to give it, that's okay. When you think about life in general, it's a continuous learning experience. It's nature teaching you lessons all the time. And if at any moment you don't sit down and really reflect on every lesson that has been taught by nature, by the world, by life, you don't get it, and it'll repeat itself. So it is very important, if you want to call it meditation, reflecting, contemplation, introspection, whatever name you want to give it, it is very important to do. That way you can grow and learn the lesson and move on. How many times have you seen people get into relationships and they get out of it because it's bad, but then they get into another one that's exactly the same situation?
Sure.
It's because they never really learned their lesson. They never really reflected on it and understood what happened every step of the way, how they attracted that into their life, what they need to do with themselves, not change the other person, because you can't change anyone else. The only person you can change really is yourself. And once you change yourself, you will realize that the things that start coming into your life are different. And that is where it all starts and ends with you. And when you understand that, and you start reflecting on yourself, you can change it. And you start seeing your evolution, which is a pretty amazing thing. You start looking back at where you started from and where you are right now, and you can see the journey.